Hey, everybody. First, thank you very, very much for joining me when I had just about an hour ago, Oakland, Mr. Involvement in all kinds of things, political John Jones on for an hour. And now, right behind that, I have another great friend and person who's been involved in really recreating sports as we know it, and that's Leigh Steinberg. Leigh, how you doing?
Great to be with you, Zenny.
Yeah, you too as well. Hey, Leigh, first of all, catch everybody up on the goings on your firm because you went through a lot of great changes. What's going on?
Well, we had a great group of minority investors, and but we had the opportunity to team with Ron Burkle, who has a company called Ukaipa, and Ron is an amazing entrepreneur who owned Ralph's Supermarkets, Food for Less, owns the Pittsburgh Penguins, an entertainment agency, a whole series of other things. So it gave us complementary strengths. So that occurred a couple months ago. And so we're moving forward in partnership, and it gives us the ability to do bigger projects that can impact sports.
Congratulations. Really, really exciting. Is this the same people that at one point had his eye on buying the Oakland Athletics a long time ago?
He might have been. I'm not sure, but he's a major Democratic fundraiser. Owns a place called Green Acres. I think he also bought Michael Jackson's estate. So he owns a series of things, but he's very dynamic, and it's a privilege to be with him.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's talk NFL season. And first of all, I know you didn't have clients that you got out of this draft because of the upheavals you're going through, but it didn't stop you from keeping an eye on the draft. What were your thoughts about this record number of quarterbacks going off the board in the first round?
I thought it was a very glamorous draft with all sorts of players that the public knew, and I think that's one of the reasons they had very high ratings. They had almost 30 million people watching. Compare that to the Oscars, for example. And so they had quarterback, and then they had great wide receivers, and they had a killer tight end, and it looked for a while as if there would never be a defensive pick. But it also shows critically how important the quarterback position has become. And that if teams don't have a franchise quarterback, and you and I have talked about this before, but if you don't have a quarterback that you can build around for 10 to 12 years, who you can win with rather than because, and who importantly, in critical circumstances where there's adversity, the player's throwing a couple interceptions, the crowd's booing, the center's looking at the quarterback like he's on hallucinogens, and the game is getting out of hand. What does he do now? Can he compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind? About a third of the games are blowouts, but 2/3 are coming down the last quarter or even the last drive. And so you're looking for someone who can do that. And you saw that teams that thought they had someone discarded them, so that Philadelphia let Carson Wentz go, and the New York Jets let Sam Darnold go. And so you had a large series of teams that were interested in that market.
Do you think that this flood of quarterbacks produces a kind of a glut that maybe we will see teams switching out of quarterbacks faster than perhaps they would have 5 years ago or even 3 years ago?
No, I think there's more of a premium now. There's always been a premium, but watch very carefully the situation that each quarterback goes into, because it's so much about the quality of the offensive line, the tools they have offensively, the system they run, and not putting the quarterback into a situation where he's thrown out his first year. That's the year that the big adjustment takes place. The defenses are quicker. The degree of separation is quicker. and he's thrown out there. He throws some interception. He does some things. They lose confidence very quickly, and he might well have been a great quarterback 3 years from now. But it takes time, and we don't have a lot of patience in contemporary football. It's win now, and you can, because of all the social media, someone can be adjudged to be a bust before we've even seen what their potential is.
Yeah, like I'll just ask this before I shift to COVID, but Mac Jones, I mean, I've downgraded him. A number of people have downgraded him. In retrospect, and I'm also criticizing myself, that might not be fair. What are your thoughts on how Mac Jones has been evaluated?
I think he'll be just fine. And I think in some ways he was the luckiest of everybody because he went to a franchise that's been extraordinary in respect to the ownership. Bob Kraft is an amazing owner. They've got a great front office. Bill Belichick is the best coach in football. The scoreboard says that year after year. And he's going into a situation where they've had a down year or two, but oh my goodness, they have a system which is modular. They plug and play players, and they're schematic in that they always have that defensive player right where the running back's going to run the ball, right where the wide receiver is going. And conversely, they schematically come up with plays that take the other side by surprise. And Belichick's always coaching for that game. So one-on-one, you give him enough time. So Mac Jones walks into that. They obviously have Cam Newton, but it's a great concept to sit behind an aging quarterback and pick up all his wisdom. And I think he's in great shape. They won't let him fail.
That's exciting to watch. Hey, switching over to COVID, we went through, all of us, a tough time last year. And as we emerge from this, is the NFL, are we going too fast? Should the draft have been not virtual this year? Full stadiums, is that too much to expect considering the rate of people that have been vaccinated? What are your thoughts?
We're talking in it's May, and something like 150 million people have gotten at least one shot. But now the question is the anti-vaxxers and COVID resistance going to stop us from getting the herd immunity? I mean, people have to make their own decisions. I respect that. But the truth of the matter is there's enough vaccine to vaccinate everybody in the country right now. And it's slowing down. If it would continue proceeding, then I think we could see full crowds. Because what they've said is, the CDC has said that if you're outdoors and you've been vaccinated, it's totally safe to have you in a situation. So I think you have largely vaccinated crowds. There'll be controversy over presenting the so-called vaccine passbook or the vaccine proof. But the truth is there's going to be that kind of discrimination and people will enter. So the best news for the NFL is that in the midst of this cratered economy and the pandemic, they were able to take their two big contracts for television, which are Fox and CBS, and go up by 85%, almost double what that package had been before. And the package was enormous before. So this is 10 years of great news. ESPN went up 35%. But you would have thought that the money would have been diminished, and instead to almost double it. That's blue skies ahead for football. So the only missing element is gate and the people there. And I'll tell you, I went to some games last season in Miami and eventually in Kansas City. I felt safer than I did walking around at home.
Hmm. Hmm. What do you think the NFL's deal says about the future of the NFL versus not just sport, but other forms of entertainment? Here's where I'm going with this. We are watching things on this now, and the Oscars didn't draw as many viewers as they have in the past. There was evaluations, but they didn't include streaming. My point is, does this give the NFL a chance to really expand how it does its entertainment? What should the NFL be doing? I'm asking a person in establishing Asante Sports had a number of ideas of the fusing of sports and entertainment. Is you, Leigh. All right. What can the NFL do with this position? You know?
So it first of all, let's talk about the Oscars for a second. That was the worst Oscar broadcast I've ever seen. They didn't show you movies. They had this motif where they're asking everyone how they started in Hollywood. They spent considerable time with just the presenter or the host, characterizing everything, not talking to the actual people. And so it didn't have big stars. The movies were in a pandemic year where there were virtually no big box office hits and people didn't know the movies. I thought they had excellent movies, but and it was like they were trying to turn off people and push them away. They were slow, lifeless, and all the rest of it. So we'll put the Oscars over here. What the NFL
plain clothes bit though?
what the NFL can do is it can continue on with bringing fans closer to sport. So there's a new league now that allows fans who invest in it to interview the coach, to interview the general manager, to pick the starting lineup. I've told you before about an app I'd like to have that fans could take into a stadium, and down one side of your phone would run your fantasy stats, down the other side would run your gambling bets. Underneath, we'd have texting so you could talk smack to people in or out of the stadium. Now, we'd let the fans vote on one play call that the coach has to call. And we'd let the fans vote on one referee overturn that the ref had to change the call. And when you touch it, you can order from a snack bar. When you touch it, you can order up or dial up an unrelenting diet of other games, puzzles, quizzes, everything that ultimately monetizes. So we have a VR project with Patrick Mahomes that allows you to put on the headset and you then go into Arrowhead Stadium and you are the quarterback. And predicated on what you do with the football, you can either throw a touchdown pass or get sacked. And it's got all the noise, all the reality, and it brings fans closer to sport. We have fantasy. We have we need to make stadia into fun zones, so there's lots to do, because I'm not betting on, first of all, if you go, you're not always going to see victories. So the fan experience has to be right. And second of all, the attention span of Gen Z is very different than what you and I grew up with. They've been on big screen sound, fast cutting, color, going back and forth between TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, and little bites of information, but it attenuates attention span. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a football game with 3.5 hours and only 28 minutes of action, you better be doing something else.
Yeah, and I noticed that I have the Raiders app too for the new stadium, and it seems to me between the app you're talking about, what the Raiders have at the Legion Stadium, and others I haven't seen but I've only read about, we're headed to a place where I believe maybe this year we'll begin to start gambling on sports. I don't know. I haven't seen that division open on the radar app. Maybe you can shed a light on where we are with that.
Well, the Supreme Court decision says you can gamble,
Yeah.
and so it's out how each state implements it. I believe we'll have betting in stadium within a couple of years. You already have teams that are working with Indian casinos, that are working with fantasy sports. I mean, the sport's already pregnant with gambling, which was the big, the last taboo was ever having sports on the theory that if an athlete got compromised on gambling bets or something else and shaved his performance, football or any other sport, baseball, basketball, could become wrestling. People would start to wonder if it was fixed. So we have all those things, and then along come NFTs. So for those of you who don't know what an NFT is, it's a piece of memorabilia. It can be a picture, it can be art, it can be a photograph, it can be a group of film that someone puts up, and you can own this, but it only exists on your computer. So they're already doing basketball cards that way. We had Mahomes do an event where he made $3.4 million for his charity in about 20 minutes. People are buying what you and I would think of when we were growing up as air.
So that means that basically you're telling me this old video that I have of a brawl that broke out in front of Harry's Bar in the Fillmore could possibly be the focus of an NFT.
You could put it up and you could say either it's 1 of 50, and that gets you a certain level of action, or you can say it's 1 of 1. You will be the unique person who owns this authenticated Zenny film, and you have bragging rights over everyone else in the world.
Yeah, because that's been caught on camera and every place. I mean, thanks for the idea, Leigh. I think I owe you some money. A little bit.
The check's in the mail.
Yeah, from me to you, and we'll figure it out. This is exciting stuff. I mean, it sounds like to me we're reaching a whole new frontier, huh?
Well, I think that, again, as technology gets better and virtual reality gets better, they can superimpose an athlete sitting next to you. So you can have your favorite athlete sitting next to you. We have Cameo now with which I'm on, where you speak to people and wish them happy birthday or give them some encouragement. We have endless the mind. There's no limits when we start to do virtual reality, augmented reality, and it's a brave new world.
And something else too on that brave new world that I think is going to give us. I want to get your comment on this. The state of Florida just approved the ability of athletes is down the high school level to make money from their image and likeness, and now organizations can sign up. You don't have to be in Florida to be one of the marketers of a Florida athlete. Are other states going to copy this model? Are you all involved in that? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the state of California put together SB 208, which did just that. And California started the trend, but they made their opening date, I think, 2023. And that was so the NCAA could react to it. Because if you get it in one state or you're able to do it at one college, then it's going to be everywhere. The NCAA went ahead and passed a directive that said this would start in January of 2021. And then when it came time, they didn't do it. So we're waiting right now because the issue of NCAA eligibility is different from state regulations. The NCAA if you went ahead and hired a marketing agent and they hadn't had the bill implemented yet, you'd lose your player would lose his eligibility. But it's going to move our business much earlier, because the primary beneficiaries of this will be college quarterbacks from big programs, like someone from Alabama or Ohio State, University of Texas, Oklahoma, these states with these rabid alum bases. Or it could be a woman who was getting ready for the Olympics and the rest of it. But remember that there are certain affinity groups that are alums from schools that are so attached to their university, they'll buy anything or back anything. So it is possible to do some advertising, although I think Jameis Winston or Johnny Manziel or Tua Tagovailoa coming out of school, they had enough name recognition that they could be a national brand. But the University of Alabama has enough alums that will buy a product that an athlete's associated with. That so what you have to think as a sports agent, if you don't jump on that at the point someone enters college, if another marketing agent who also does players gets him, you'll never get a shot.
That it brings up a question. There was a Cal shot putter, not shot putter, but a pole vaulter. I forgot her name. She wound up marrying
Allison Stokey.
Thank you very, very much, Allison Stokey. She has an Instagram following, had one at Cal that was just through the roof. Does this give the Allison Stokeys of the world a chance to, in a sense, from a revenue standpoint, equalize the playing field with the men?
Absolutely. And so at the end of the day, you mentioned Instagram. So the currency in endorsements and the currency in marketing is how many followers does an athlete have on Instagram or TikTok or theoretically LinkedIn or Facebook, and that becomes the currency. So someone like Allison, who I know, who came in with high profile and had extraordinary looks along with talent, created a stir. Wasn't the stir she wanted, but it created a stir. She wanted to be judged for her character and athletic ability, not just because she was gorgeous.
That brings up an interesting point, though. As we mature and evolve with this, do you see a more thoughtful presentation from younger athletes as to how they want to be presented? In other words, because the argument can be made that maybe Allison wasn't aware because there was nobody who wanted a better to use the street term schooling her.
Well, they're already doing it. You already have athletes who understand what their brand is. Out of 100 people, can someone name Zenny Abraham? And if they can name you, can they do an appellation? Yes, he's a journalist who writes and interviews. And if they can do that, do they have a positive imagery of you, that they think positive things, and that's Q factor. So athletes already understand, because they're conversant with social media from when they're young. They can work it much better than you and I can. So they already know about branding and controlling their image, and then how you can monetize having that high number of followers by affixing advertising to it.
Hey, so as we close, that means I should take that video where I have our mutual friend Larry Deal of Channel 7 saying, years ago, I have the blogger Zenny Abraham texting me about Super Solo. We had a bet. I think I'll do that. That's a good idea.
Could be a winner. Remember, the whole theory of the long tail was that you couldn't have an infinite number of book titles in a bookstore. They just didn't have the room. But when the internet came along, people might buy just one copy a year of Moby Dick. But the point is that if you had the ability to give everybody license to look at every title ever done, those ones and twos add up.
You certainly do.
So somebody out there will love the Zinni tape.
Leigh, I'm honored to have you on once again. Any announcements or messages you want to send out as we close?
Well, we have, trying to think when our next Agent Academy or career seminar is. I think it's a career seminar. Oh, it's marketing. So if you're out there and you have an interest in athletic marketing, go to steinbergsports.com and sign up. You've got some of the great marketers in the country explaining to you how you can have a career in that sport.
So there you go. Steinbergsports.com, folks. Go there. Leigh, stick around in the back. And folks, that ends this broadcast. And thank you all very much for coming in and coming out and everything else. And we'll see you later tonight. And if you haven't done so before, subscribe to Zinni62 and bookmark OaklandNewsNow.com. That ends this